Want to know something wild? This story is 100% real, and I still can't believe it happened to me. Buckle up because it's a roller coaster. I refused to let my brother move into my new apartment after he betrayed my trust in the worst way imaginable, and now my whole family thinks I'm the villain, but I know I did what I had to do to protect myself. Hey Reddit. I'm Emily, a 28-year-old graphic designer living in Chicago. My older brother, David, who's 31, is married to Rachel, and they have two adorable kids, Lily, who's 6, and Ethan, who's 4. Growing up, David and I were super close, like best friends who shared everything, and things started out feeling like the perfect family setup until it all came crashing down. Let me take you back to those early days when everything seemed so idyllic. David and I grew up in a cozy brownstone in Chicago, the kind of place where the sunlight streamed through the windows in the morning, making the whole house feel warm and inviting. We'd spend our childhood sharing a room until I was about 10, whispering secrets under the covers late at night. I'd sketch little designs in my notebook, dreaming of becoming a graphic designer, and he'd talk about starting his own business someday. He was always the protective big brother, helping me with my math homework when I struggled, and I'd cover for him when he wanted to sneak out to hang with his friends. It felt unbreakable, that bond we had. Then Rachel entered the picture about 5 years ago, and I absolutely loved her from the start. She had this vibrant energy that lit up any room. She'd invite me over for homemade tacos, and we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. Their kids, Lily and Ethan, started calling me Auntie M right away, and I cherished those weekends building blanket forts with them in their living room, the giggles echoing off the walls as we piled pillows high. Life felt like a beautiful snapshot, frozen in time, where family meant everything and nothing could go wrong. But looking back, maybe I was too naive, because the first cracks were already starting to show, even if I didn't notice them then. It all began with those subtle first signs that something was off, though I tried to brush them aside at the time. Last spring, I landed this massive freelance gig designing a full website for a promising startup, and the paycheck was life-changing. It finally gave me enough to start seriously saving for my dream apartment. I was thrilled, my heart racing with excitement as I imagined a sunny one-bedroom spot in Logan Square, complete with a balcony where I could sip my morning coffee and watch the city wake up. I couldn't wait to share the news, so one evening, I met David at our favorite dive bar in the neighborhood. The neon signs buzzed softly overhead, casting a warm glow on the warm wooden tables, and the faint smell of craft beer hung in the air as I spilled all the details. I described the place vividly: hardwood floors that creaked just right underfoot, big windows letting tons of natural light, and the stunning view of the Chicago skyline stretching out like a promise of new beginnings. David's eyes lit up, but not in the proud, supportive way I expected from my brother. It was more calculating, like he was piecing together a puzzle in his mind. "That sounds amazing, Em," he said, swirling his drink slowly, his voice casual but probing. "Rachel and I have been talking a lot about needing more space ourselves. Our current apartment is way too cramped for the kids. They're tripping over toys everywhere." I nodded sympathetically, thinking he was just venting about their situation, but then he kept digging deeper, asking about my budget, the exact square footage, and if it had any extra rooms that could be converted. His questions felt oddly specific, like he was mentally measuring my future home against his own needs. I felt a tiny knot form in my stomach, a subtle unease that I couldn't quite shake, but I pushed it down, telling myself it was nothing. After all, this was David, my rock-solid brother who'd always had my back. But that knot? It was the first warning sign, and I wish I'd listened to it sooner, because things were about to get a whole lot weirder. As the weeks went on, my suspicion started to grow, building like a storm cloud on the horizon that I couldn't ignore anymore. I dropped by David and Rachel's place often to hang out, like one afternoon when I was helping Lily piece together a colorful puzzle on the living room floor while Ethan zoomed his toy cars around us, the little engines making vroom sounds that filled the small space. Their apartment was undeniably cramped, boxes stacked haphazardly in the corners from lack of storage, kids' toys spilling out from every nook, and the air thick with the scent of whatever Rachel was cooking in that tiny kitchen. Rachel let out a heavy sigh as she wiped her hands on a dish towel, her shoulders slumping with exhaustion. "This place is absolutely suffocating us, Emily," she said, her voice laced with frustration as she glanced around the cluttered room. "If only we could afford something bigger, like that new apartment you're eyeing." Her words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and I forced an awkward laugh, trying to deflect. "Yeah, it's just a modest one-bedroom, though barely enough space for me and my sketches." But she didn't let it go. Her eyes lingered on me expectantly, as if waiting for me to offer up a solution right then and there. It made my skin prickle with discomfort, that unspoken pressure. Then, a couple of days later, David texted me a link to a Zillow listing for a spacious 3-bedroom house out in the suburbs, complete with a backyard and everything. His message read, "This would be perfect for all of us, right? Imagine the kids running around there." I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, my heart pounding as the words "all of us" jumped out at me. I hadn't mentioned anything about sharing or inviting them to live with me. It was my solid dream, my hard-earned escape. The knot in my stomach tightened into a full-blown twist, and I started wondering if they were scheming something behind my back. Were they really expecting me to hand over my future home? I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, that family just talks like this sometimes, but deep down a voice whispered that this was more than casual chatter. And oh, how right that voice was, because the hints were turning into something much more aggressive. By July, I finally found and secured the apartment of my dreams, but that's when the open conflict exploded, shattering any illusions I had left about our family harmony. It was a cozy, one-bedroom gem with that sunny balcony I'd fantasized about, exposed brick walls that gave it a charming, artistic vibe, and a kitchen spacious enough from my weekend baking experiments, the kind where the smell of fresh cookies would waft through the air, making the whole place feel like home. I was over the moon, my excitement bubbling over as I signed the lease and invited David over to celebrate with some takeout pizza. I expected him to share in my joy, maybe raise a toast to my success, but when I casually mentioned I was moving in alone, his face darkened instantly, like a switch had flipped. "Alone?" he snapped, his voice sharp and accusatory as he set down his slice. "Yeah, come on. We're absolutely drowning in our place. The kids need more room to play, and Rachel's on the verge of a breakdown in the shoebox we call home." I was completely floored, my mouth going dry as I processed his words. "Oh, David, this is my apartment," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of shock and anger. "I've worked for years to make this happen. It's my fresh start." He scoffed, crossing his arms tightly across his chest, his eyes narrowing. "You're being so selfish right now. Family is supposed to help family. You've got this huge opportunity falling into your lap, and you're just thinking about yourself." The words hit me like a slap, stinging deep in my chest and leaving me breathless. I felt a rush of hurt and betrayal wash over me. How could my own brother, the one I'd always trusted, turn on me like this? "I'm not your bailout plan, David," I shot back, my hands shaking as I stood up. He stormed out without another word, slamming the door behind him so hard that the walls seemed to vibrate, echoing my shattered emotions. My chest ached like someone had carved out a piece of my heart, leaving a hollow space. I sat there alone, staring at the uneaten pizza growing cold, wondering how our close bond had frayed so quickly. But this confrontation? It was just the tip of the iceberg, and the real storm was brewing. What would you have done in my shoes at that point? Tried to smooth things over with your brother, or started setting firmer boundaries right then? The turning point came a week before my official move-in date, flipping my world upside down and making me question everything I thought I knew about trust. I was buzzing with anticipation, packing boxes, and daydreaming about arranging my furniture in the new space, when my landlord, Mr. Thompson, called out of the blue. His voice was calm but concerned on the other end of the line. "Emily, I wanted to check in because someone claiming to be your roommate reached out about adding a name to the lease," he said matter-of-factly. My blood ran cold, a chill racing down my spine as I gripped the phone tighter. "Roommate, I'm living alone, there's no one else." He forwarded me the email, and as I opened it, my worst fears stared back at me. David's full name, boldly stating he was moving in with me and requesting immediate changes to the lease agreement. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, my mind reeling as I realized my own brother had gone behind my back in such a calculated way. That night, I marched over to his place, my heart thundering in my ears. The air inside smelled faintly of burnt toast from their dinner, and Rachel hovered in the background, busying herself with the kids, as if she sensed the tension. "Did you seriously try to sneak onto my lease without telling me?" I demanded, my voice cracking with raw emotion. David didn't even flinch. He met my gaze steadily and said, "Yeah, I did. We need this more than you know. I figured if I got on the lease first, you'd come around and see it's the right thing for the family." My hands trembled uncontrollably, tears stinging my eyes as the full weight of his deception sank in. He hadn't just hinted or asked, he'd actively tried to hijack my home, my sanctuary. "You betrayed me, David," I whispered, my voice breaking as hurt and anger collided inside me. He just shrugged, as if it were a minor inconvenience, not a massive breach of trust. In that moment, our sibling bond shattered irreparably, and I felt a profound sadness mixed with resolve. I knew I had to protect myself from now on. But if I thought that was the end, I was dead wrong. The drama was only escalating. I took decisive action in the break that followed, cutting ties to safeguard my peace, but it came at a heavy emotional cost. First thing, I changed the locks on the apartment even before fully moving in, and I made it crystal clear to David that he wasn't welcome anywhere near my new place. He exploded in response, bombarding me with calls and texts calling me ungrateful and accusing me of abandoning our family when they needed me most. Rachel jumped in too, sending a lengthy message that twisted the knife. "Lily and Ethan deserve so much better than this cramped life, Emily. How can you do this to your own niece and nephew?" They guilt gnawed at me, picturing those sweet kids in their tiny space, but I reminded myself this wasn't my burden to carry. They were using emotional blackmail to manipulate me. Then my parents, Sarah and Michael, got pulled into the mess. Mom called, her voice heavy with disappointment that made my stomach churn. "Emily, is your brother family sticks together. You can't just cut him off over what's probably a simple misunderstanding." But this was no misunderstanding, it was a deliberate betrayal. I felt isolated and heartbroken, like I was losing my entire support system, but I blocked the numbers and focused on settling into my apartment. Unpacking boxes in the sunny living room, with light pouring in and making everything feel fresh, brought a bittersweet relief. The space was finally mine, a haven where I could breathe freely, but the ache of fractured family ties lingered like a shadow. I thought maybe things would calm down now that I'd drawn a line, but David wasn't done. He was about to push things into full-blown escalation. The climax hit like a thunderbolt, piling on layers of betrayal that I never saw coming and forcing me to take even stronger measures. 2 weeks after I'd moved in, I came home from a long day at work, my keys jingling as I unlocked the door, only to notice something off. The balcony door was slightly ajar, as if it had been jimmied open. My heart raced wildly, adrenaline surging as I stepped inside cautiously, expecting to find my place ransacked or worse. Instead, everything looked untouched except for a single note left on the kitchen counter in David's unmistakable handwriting. "We need this place more than you, and let's talk before it's too late." I felt utterly violated, my safe space tainted by his intrusion, and a wave of fear mixed with fury crashed over me. How dare he break in like that? I called the locksmith immediately, upgrading to deadbolts and installing a full security system with cameras and motion sensors that would alert my phone at the slightest movement. But the shocks kept coming. A mutual friend, Sarah, who I had known since college, pulled me aside at a coffee shop and spilled everything she'd heard. The aroma of fresh brews filled the air as she leaned in, her voice low. "David's been telling everyone you owe him big time because you've made it while his family struggles. He even showed friends photos of your apartment, claiming it's basically his since he helped you get to where you are. Help me." I'd built my career from scratch, late nights freelancing with no safety net. The manipulation stung deeply, realizing he was spinning lies to turn people against me. But wait, it got darker. A month later, a letter arrived from a lawyer, my stomach dropping as I tore it open. Inside was a forged lease agreement with my signature clumsily imitated, claiming David was entitled to half the apartment due to some fabricated family investment. The document was riddled with errors, my name misspelled, dates that didn't align, but it terrified me nonetheless, showing how far he'd go. I hired my own lawyer, Jessica, a sharp professional who confirmed it was fate but warned, "He's desperate, Emily, and desperate people can turn reckless. Watch your back." The fear kept me up at night, every creak in the building making me jump, so I started sleeping with a baseball bat by my bed for protection. Just when I thought the nightmare couldn't intensify, my parents orchestrated an intervention that felt like a conspiracy against me, pushing the drama to its peak. Mom called one evening, her tone deceptively light, inviting me to a family dinner at their house to catch up. I showed up hesitantly, hoping maybe we could find some common ground and heal, but as I walked in, the trap was sprung. David, Rachel, our cousin Mark, and even a family friend, Pastor John, were all there, seated around the dining table like a jury. The smell of Mom's homemade lasagna, usually comforting, now turned my stomach as Pastor John launched into a sermon about forgiveness and family duty, his words dripping with judgment. David stood up dramatically, tears glistening in his eyes for effect, and pleaded, "We're really struggling here. You're living it up in that fancy apartment while my kids are basically sleeping in a closet. How can you turn your back on us?" I felt cornered, my pulse racing as anger boiled over. "You forged documents, David. You broke into my home and tried to steal my life," I shouted, my voice echoing in the tense room. Silence fell like a blanket, Mom bursting into sobs and accusing me of tearing the family apart for nothing. The betrayal from everyone, including my parents who I thought would at least hear me out, left me reeling with hurt and isolation. I grabbed my coat and stormed out, the door slamming behind me as tears streamed down my face. But the hits kept coming. Rachel escalated by posting on social media, sharing heartbreaking photos of Lily and Ethan in the cramped bedroom with captions like, "All these kids need is a real home, but selfishness stands in the way." My phone lit up with messages from distant relatives and old friends, labeling me cruel and heartless. Even my coworker Lisa pulled me aside at the office, asking, "Is this true, Emily? Are you really leaving your niece and nephew in such a bad spot?" I wanted to scream from the rooftops that it was all twisted lies. My modest one-bedroom was no mansion, just enough for me and my cat, Luna. The public shaming felt like a coordinated attack, deepening my sense of violation. The final straw snapped when I discovered my spare key was missing, revealing a chilling act of theft that sealed my decision for good. I'd kept it tucked away in a kitchen drawer, and during Mom's so-called apology visit a few days prior, where she'd shown up with coffee and tears, pretending to mend fences, it had mysteriously vanished. Then my neighbor, Mr. Carter, texted me late one night, "Hey, saw a guy lurking around your balcony earlier. Looked like he was trying to force his way in, be careful." My blood turned to ice as I rushed to check my security footage. The grainy video showing David clearly fiddling with the balcony door using what had to be my stolen key. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just manipulation. It was outright criminal, a desperate attempt to invade my space again. Shaking with fear and resolve, I called the police right away, explaining the break-in attempt, the forgery, and the harassment. Officer Daniels, a compassionate woman who listened patiently, nodded and said, "You're absolutely doing the right thing here. Protecting your space is crucial." They issued a stern warning to David and Rachel, and I secured a restraining order to keep them at bay. The process left me emotionally drained, but also empowered, like I was finally reclaiming control. Now, months later, I'm fully settled in my apartment, and it's become my true sanctuary amid the chaos. I sip coffee on the balcony each morning, watching the Chicago skyline glow with the rising sun, while Luna curls up in my lap, her soft purring a soothing reminder that I'm not alone. I've cut all contact with David, Rachel, and even my parents, who still paint me as the villain in their version of events. My lawyer Jessica is handling any lingering legal loose ends with the restraining order, and my security system runs around the clock, giving me peace of mind. I've started therapy sessions to unpack the deep betrayal, and it's helping me rebuild my confidence step by step, processing the grief over losing the brother I once idolized, the one who'd sneak me ice cream when Mom wasn't looking. Sometimes I wonder if I could have spotted the red flags earlier or set boundaries sooner to prevent the escalation. But deep down, I know I did what was necessary. My home was mine, earned through my own hard work, and for the first time, I'm truly living for myself without apology. If you were in my shoes, would you have given your brother another chance after all that betrayal, or was cutting him off the only way to protect yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Check out the next video, it's just as wild.